All right, I think we're good. Hey guys, hey Stay Wild Child. I am pretty sure we are live, or it's setting up to go live anyway. This is Nicole and Dana. I like to call her our group astrologer, if you will. She has taught me so much. I've attended some of Dana's classes, and we met through this really cool intuitive happy hour, and it's just been a delight to get to know Dana. She did my astrology reading for me, and I plan on coming back for some more because it was so good on the first one. But thank you, Dana. Thanks for joining Stay Wild Child.
I'm so happy to be here. I will be the group astrologer for as long as you'll have me.
Oh, you're so sweet. Oh, and hey, I decided Katrina had I put out. I don't like the word episode. I don't know why. I just don't care for it. So I put out what would be a good title for what I'm doing, and she said, "How about Conversations with Stay Wild Child?"
I love that.
I like it too because it's what it is.
So conversation, sharing some information. It's good.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And I love these. I love these times. Every Monday at noon Central Standard Time, it gives everybody the opportunity to tune in, and then they can, of course, watch it on YouTube later. And I have really got the nudge to get this on podcast. So that's my next deal. I have all the content. I just need to get it up to the podcast.
But I can do that.
Right. I just got to just get it up there. In Cloudland. So I love doing these because I think that every week, I bring somebody who's either, some like badass boss girl, or somebody who is like creating magic, or somebody who is, a psychic medium we had last week, or somebody who's a life coach, or somebody who's a success coach. I mean, all these different titles that everybody wears, but we all kind of like intertwine, right? We all kind of intertwine, and we all kind of like dip our toes in all these really cool, like spiritual things and scientific things. And so I feel really blessed to be able to have this platform just to bring on women like you.
Well, I love all of your guests. You've had some amazing women on, and I love hearing everything that they share. And it is so cool, just what you said, how it all connects together.
Right.
They're just sort of like different views into a one kind of picture. And it's like finding whichever way you feel comfortable, kind of diving into it is the right way for you.
Absolutely. Yes, totally. So I know you've shared your story before, and so we won't go back into that again, but let's kind of start with, I knew when I was going to talk to you today. I knew that the energy has been a bit intense lately, and at least it has in my home. And then I've seen a handful of people posting on the Stay Wild Child group, like, what the hell is going on? Why is there has been some intense energy. And so, I mean, you always come on at exactly the perfect time.
It's divine, right? Like you reached out and said, would you do this? And I was like, of course. And June is the perfect month to touch base again on everything that's happening. Because we talked, what was it, January, February?
I think it was January, which I thought it was sooner I thought it was like just March or something. But no, I went and looked for your photo, and I'm like, oh, it was January. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
It was perfect in January because we were kicking off this year of what we call, it's been very well known in astrology circles of this stellium in Capricorn. And you have Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn all in conversation. And that type of connection hasn't happened in over 500 years. And it usually portends like definite cross-sweeping changes, right?
Right.
And we talked about in January that this was going to be an intense year. Like it just was. It's an intense year of transformation across the board at the personal level, as well as at our, bigger, larger macro global scale levels, which we've seen, right?
Yes.
We've seen all kinds, and there are various different disciplines within astrology. So I do more personal astrology, but you can do, there's groups that do more what they call mundane. So they're looking at global economies. There are medical astrologers. And I mean, there's all different kinds, right? There's financial astrologers specifically. So I had listened to myself, had attended a little group back in December that had brought all these different kinds of astrologers together. And they were talking about definite global governmental changes. They were talking about some type of pandemic. They couldn't identify what type exactly, but there was going to be some sort of pandemic type of emergency, and that there would be financial crisis as well. So those sound really scary, right? But they don't have to be. You know, I look at this as an opportunity for us as a collective of humanity to start changing where we need to change, right? That's the whole point of this stellium in Capricorn with these major outer planets having conversation, is that it's time to change what's not working. And typically when Pluto is involved, you have to break what you have in order to rebuild something better. So we've seen already in the first half of the year, we have seen a breakdown in our medical communities, our hospitals. We've learned where we're lacking. You know, PPE, we're lacking ventilators, we're, you know, all those areas within our medical profession that's lacking. We're lacking testing abilities, you know, that we weren't able to control things a little bit better. The way we work. So our corporations are undergoing massive change right now. I have a full-time job in addition to my astrology work, and we are working from home. And it was things that we were, you know, I'm part of marketing departments that, oh, we can never do marketing from home. You have to be in the office and you have to have meetings all day long. And with, you know, new types of telecommunication like Zoom and Teams and WebEx and everything else out there, marketing is going to be one of the last groups brought back into our organization from a working from home perspective. So we are working in different ways. We're learning in different ways. Our educational system has been thrown up in the air and like a tossed salad, right? So you have all of this at the macro level happening in even more ways, you know, looking at, you know, different financial things. We've had social unrest. So our social justice is broken, you know, and their lack of equality that we fixed that. No, we didn't. So we're seeing now more social unrest. And this is just the beginning. I say that with a little bit of a cringe because I don't want people to worry or get into a fear mentality at all. Right. This is all being done for our greatest good. This is all being done so that we can come together and rebuild in a better way. But we first have to see where the cracks are, right? And growth sometimes comes with a little bit of uncomfortableness and a little bit of frustration and pain. And that's what we're moving through right now. So one of the other things we touched on at the beginning of the year was that we're going to be covered in retrograde energy this whole year, which isn't usually very common. We typically see 3 to 4 Mercury retrogrades a year. That's very common. We spend about half our lives in Mercury retrograde, and I know people in pop culture, it gets a bit of a bad rap, but it's actually a really good time for us just in the cycles of life to pause and rest and do all of our REs, right? Reevaluate our business. But on top of those Mercury retrogrades, we have 3 this year. We also have a Venus retrograde, which we're still in the midst of. Right. And then we have another Mercury retrograde about to start. And we have a Mars retrograde coming up this fall, but the energy starts to feel a little bit sooner. Also right now, we have Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn all in retrograde. So those planets, the outer planets typically do go retrograde every year, and it can be anywhere from 4 to 6 months at a time. And that's pretty typical. We don't always feel it as intensely as we do this year. We're feeling it intensely this year because of that stellium in Capricorn. We're feeling it at these global levels of we need to pause. We need to take a step back. It's still everything with an RE, right? Rest, reassess, reevaluate, rediscover. Anything that you can put RE in front of is the retrograde timing. And that's true with these outer planets. These outer planet retrogrades have a lot to do with what's going on at the big level, at that macro level. So it's time now. We've been through this first wave of shelter in place and quarantine and buckle down and don't go out. And now it's the time for people to stop and reassess. Was that good? Did it work? Should I keep doing it? Is there something different that's true for me at the personal level, right? Like we're all needing to go through that at the personal level, but it's also happening at the global level and that those bigger scales as well. So companies are now saying, do we bring the people back in? Do we leave them at home? How can we be safe at work? Stores, from a shopping perspective, we need to keep the economy going, but we also need to keep our employees safe. So all of these sort of reevaluations are happening now, and you can see in the news, which I try not to listen to, but if you choose to listen to the news, there's already talk of a potential second wave coming, or a second reason to be at home later this year. So now everybody's like second guessing things. And that's very typical of retrograde energy. It's very typical to like, what do I need to do? So you have all of that bigger evaluation or reevaluation happening right now at the macro level, but it's also impacting us personally. As we think about for ourselves, what's true for us, what do I need to do that's good for me, that's good for my family, and while not judging what other people choose to do, right? Somebody else might feel like something is different for them, is better for them. So, what we're being asked to do right now is really say, okay, what's true for me? And to then not judge and allow other people to discover what's true for them.
Right.
On that level. So we're being asked to do a lot of spiritual work right now, a lot of inner work. And you layer in there the Venus retrograde that we've been going through. Venus goes direct on the 24th. So let's see, that is next week.
And Venus is the planet of love, correct?
This is the planet of love and money.
Love and money. Okay.
So typically when Venus is in retrograde, and that happens about every 18 months, so not every year. The last time it went retrograde was back in 2018. And Venus is one of the benefic planets, so it typically doesn't feel as heavy or as awkward as a Mercury retrograde might feel. We tend to look at the world through rose-colored glasses. So, I'm fine. Everything's good. Maybe not necessarily seeing our loved ones clearly. So that can either spark a renewed romance with a loved one, or it can make things cool very much. So in the realm of love, it's always encouraged to not make any major life decisions during a Venus retrograde. So don't get engaged, don't get married, don't break up with somebody, don't get divorced, right? Right. Like we just need to sit it out, take that time to reevaluate, reassess, reconnect with the people we love. Those are good things to do without making any major decisions.
And what's the timing of this, of Venus being in retrograde?
So Venus went retrograde. Let me pull up there's a lot of dates. Venus
I know there are, girl.
Retrograde on the 12th of May.
12th of May. Okay.
We'll go back direct on the 24th of June.
Okay. Got it.
A 6-week time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Then you add in the shadow period. So that's that energy is increasing to the retrograde and then it decreases, right? So the shadow period for Venus retrograde started April 10th and will end around the 26th of July.
Okay.
So all in all, it's a pretty big window. And the level of you being affected has to do with where, Venus in your birth chart. So people who are born with a Venus retrograde in their birth chart tend to not experience it as intensely. So I might be saying things and somebody listening or watching this might go, well, that doesn't happen to me. You might have Venus retrograde in your birth chart, and that's totally fine and normal. And there's lots of free websites you can go out to and plug in your birth information and get your natal chart, your birth chart, fitting back to you, so you can kind of check that too. So we've had a long time of this Venus retrograde energy. In addition to, relationship kind of things coming up, a lot of times people from our past loves, they may actually reach out to you and have contact, but they may also just pop up in your mind. Like, oh, I thought of somebody that I hadn't thought of in forever. And okay, well, fine. But a lot of that is really just to allow us to go back over that relationship and say, did I clean up any of the baggage left over from that time? Or is there still more work to do? Just bringing that up in our lives in that way. And at the same time, you know, all that love energy going on, we also have money energy. So Venus rules money and how we spend money. And oftentimes we like to shop and we like to spend more money during a Venus retrograde, sometimes more than we have in that respect. So it's not the best time to make, again, major purchases. So don't go out and buy a boat, because that urge for some reason likes to come up with a Venus retrograde. I'm going to go buy a boat. Yeah, don't go buy a new house or, you know, new car unless you have to, unless there's a physical reason that my car broke down, I have to get a new car. And in that respect, do what you need to do, read the fine print. Don't be surprised if there could be a little cosmetic damage, because again, Venus rules beauty. So there's some things we can't avoid in life, we have to do. But if you can, wait those few weeks. You know, I think all in all, I think about an 8 to 10 week window of the year that if you can pause, that's preferred. Sometimes we have to move forward with our lives. So just take the extra precautions. In that, at the same time, there's often, because Venus rules beauty as well, we want to change our physical appearance and we want to change our physical surroundings. So that could mean like, I want to start a home renovation, or I want to redecorate my whole home. It's better to research the ideas you might want to do during this time. Again, that RE, do some research on styles, put together some mood boards or Pinterest boards, and then wait to actually do anything until the retrograde is over. Anything that involves a small amount of money that doesn't impact your daily life is fine to spend. So it's a really great time to go bargain shopping and find deals, often because other people are letting nice things go.
But
you know, in that sense, like, go thrift store shopping, go antiquing. You can probably find a lot of really good deals at that time. You know, if you want to change your room, buy some throw pillows and just see how that can change things temporarily. And then if you don't like them and you didn't spend a lot of money, they go out, you know, when the retrograde's over. Right. It's a really good time to do clothing swaps with friends. So you're like, okay, I have all these clothes in my closet I want to get rid of. Let's trade. Let's do a trade day. And then it becomes like a fun party, and everybody brings their purses and shoes and clothes that they're ready to get rid of, and you just trade. And that way, if you got rid of something you really loved, like a leather jacket or a pair of boots, you could probably get them back at the end if you were a good person.
Yeah.
But anything that's elective surgery, you know, don't do at this time. A lot of women may want to change their hair dramatically. So, you know, I have a beloved friend who sent me she's got, you know, like medium length hair, and she sent me a photo of a pixie haircut, which would be very cute on her. Yeah. But I told her to please wait, because that's like cutting off all your hair. And, you know, if you want to color it, you can always color it back, pretty risk-free. But, you know, if I were to cut off all my hair right now, and though I may have the urge, as the, you know, the energy of Venus retrograde leaves, I might have that thought of, what was I thinking? It took me how long to grow this out? It's all gone. This is not a quick fix for me, right?
Right.
The catchphrase typically of a Venus retrograde is, what was I thinking? Because again, we have those rose-colored glasses on, and everything seems like a great idea in the moment. And it's only afterward that we're like, oh, yeah, I wish I hadn't done that. So again, it's a good time to research things, pick out hairstyles that you're interested in. If you want to cut it off, pick out 3 or 4 that you want to talk to your hairdresser about. You know, think about, okay, what would I need to style it, for instance? But don't do it until the energy is cleared. I was able to talk my friend into not moving forward just yet. I was like, let's wait. In August, if you want to cut it in August. It's totally fine. But no need to start now. So you have right now, on top of all this energy of change, like severe change, and some of us, I know you love change, I love change from our numerology. A lot of people don't like change or are uncomfortable with it. So you have all of this massive change happening throughout the world. And then you have it on a personal level. So there's just, again, this things with love coming up. And for some people, it's like, oh, I love you. And for some people, it's, I hate you. So there's all this kind of emotion on top of the change that it can make people feel a little bit uncomfortable and feel a little bit like chaotic and what is happening in the world.
Right.
And we're layering into all this Venus energy. We're now moving into the shadow period of Mercury retrograde.
Okay.
So then you throw on top of this all of the communication breakdowns that can happen, transportation issues. The shadow period for Mercury retrograde started June 2nd, right around. Mercury goes retrograde on the 16th, so Wednesday. We're like right at this cusp of the heat of the moment, and then Mercury will go direct on July 12th, and the shadow period ends around the 26th of July, so the end of July. So you have both Venus shadow period ending, and you have the Mercury retrograde shadow period ending near the end of July. But until then, we still have a little bit of this chaotic energy going on. And I myself experienced my own little Mercury retrograde issue yesterday.
Okay.
I was out of town all weekend, drove down to Fredericksburg, had a great time. Car ran great with some friends, and got back Saturday evening. Sunday morning, get up to take my friend to the airport. Car won't start. Flat out won't start. We make it, we get Uber, we figure it out, you know, and then later in the day, I was able to get with my brother-in-law, and it was the battery. Battery just completely dead. There were no signs. I did not leave any lights on. It just said, I'm done. And the battery was only 18 months old. So you're like, okay, well, you know, I'll go and get the money back and all of the things for a faulty battery. But at the same time, I'm like, there was no reason for it to quit on me.
Sure.
It's my car, so transportation being impacted. But throughout all of that, because I like to take a positive spin on things, I had to just thank the universe that we made our weekend.
Yes.
Thank the universe that it was a quick Uber ride to get to the airport. Be grateful for my brother-in-law that he was available and ran me to get a new battery and then changed it out, and all of that it was a really easy thing. So by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my car was fine again. You know, I wasn't out a whole day even of things. So during all of this energy, I do try to encourage people to find the gratitude, find those little things that they can be grateful for. We all have up and down days, and that's totally normal. And we should embrace those moments when we're not feeling our best, and do that with kindness and compassion. And at the same time, knowing that it will pass. Like, this is just another part of cycle of life, and tomorrow could be better. So.
Okay, so what is going on with Mars right now, Dana? I remember something happening with Mars, and am I correct that Mars is the planet of war?
Yeah.
Is that
So the planet Mars in astrology represents our energy. It's
energy.
You know, it's our spark. Each individual person has a spark, and within the chart, it can be Mars in your natal chart can be in any of the 12 signs of zodiac. And you know, again, you can see that in your natal chart of where it actually falls. But Mars traditionally rules the sign of Aries, and in mythology, Mars was the god of war. So oftentimes, you think of the zodiac sign of Aries, there's a lot of temper and fire energy. You know, Mars is the red planet. It's full of gaseous fire, right? So we think about all of this kind of temper being easily triggered.
Right.
And it can be true if Mars is stationed in a fire sign, tempers can flare a little bit more easily, but not necessarily always. And right now, Mars has been in Pisces for quite a while. And so Pisces is a water sign. So you have traditionally a fiery planet being doused with a lot of Piscean water energy. So for some people, that can feel like detachment, can feel like their energy they just don't have any energy, that they're very tired. They need to rest. Totally fine to do. Please do that. It can feel a little bit uncomfortable, like things have slowed down, and when you want to get going, you just can't find that spark. But for the most part, Mars in Pisces is really here to teach us about finding detachment in our emotions, instead of driving forward, spend some of that energy daydreaming. Let's visualize what we want this world to look like when we're done with all this change, because we're still going to have to do the work to make the change. You know, we want to visualize, you know, what we want for our society as well as for us individually at a personal level. So it's a wonderful time to invest in creative projects, Pisces is a very creative energy. So use that. Okay, I don't feel like going out in the world. I don't really have my spark to get my list of things done. So instead, I'm going to do that craft project that I always thought about, or I have this picture frame that I want to repaint, or whatever creativity looks like for you. Spend time doing that instead. Use your energy. If you like to meditate, do some meditation. Taking a little bit of time to relax is totally fine. However, this Mars in Pisces is also coming to a close, and Mars is about to move into its home sign of Aries. So we're going to get this spark coming up in the next few weeks of this energy being brought back to our lives, that we're ready to try to get out there. We want to get our to-do list done. It's going to feel a little bit like a fevered pitch. It's, for some people, it's going to feel like, oh, I don't have enough time to get everything done that I want to get done. It's going to raise that a little bit. But at the same time, we are still going to have all of this retrograde energy that's asking us to slow down. So throughout this year, these stop and go moments, and there's these seemingly conflicting energies, but instead I like to redirect these energies into other things. Like we talked about redirecting the Mars and Pisces energy. Well, let's redirect Mars and Aries again. So you're going to have a little bit of fire to get things done. So reevaluate your list of to-dos in that retrograde energy and decide what's the most important thing you want to get done, and not try to do everything. But let's pick a few of these things. Oh, I've been thinking about that project, or I've been thinking about researching this topic, or I'd like to learn more about X.
Yeah.
Do it. Like, then you'll have the fire and the energy to do that, but you don't necessarily have to do everything on that list. So there's this sort of stop and go feeling on top of all the other chaoticness that can get people a little bit spun out. And in those moments, it's best just to pause. I advise taking a nap or meditating in some way if you can.
Sure.
Finding time for yourself, self-care this whole year is extremely, self-care is always important, but this year,
for sure. Yeah, for sure this year.
Yeah, finding those moments that you can create peace for yourself, even if it's 5 minutes, I'm like, do it, because you're going to need it just to maintain, to get through all of the energetic shifts we're experiencing. And this whole, we're going to get into this I think a little bit next, is the eclipse energy that's also layering into this. So when we talk about 2012 being a crazy year, it really is. For the good of it, right?
How many years has it been since all of these types of things have all happened at one time?
I don't know that we've ever had a time in history when we've had, let's see, five retrogrades, plus all the outer planet retrogrades, plus a changeover in eclipse cycles, and you have the stellium. Like, this is really a formative time in history. The stellium specifically for Jupiter and Pluto hasn't happened specifically in Capricorn, hasn't happened in 500 years.
And explain what the stellium is one more time.
Yeah, a stellium is a concentration of planetary energy in one sign. So if you have 3 or more planets in the same sign, then that's considered a stellium. And a stellium isn't good or bad. It just intensifies the energy.
Gotcha.
And wherever Jupiter is at, Jupiter's a benefic planet. So Jupiter's going to bring a little bit of a positive aspect to this change. So Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. And we think of the market crash. Jupiter hasn't been. Only this year did Jupiter make it to Capricorn, and is now in conversation with Pluto this year. So that brings with it, yes, we're seeing a lot of things being broken apart, but with that it brings the hope and the optimism of building something better in its place. Versus if Pluto was by itself and all this is happening, it could be a lot heavier than it has been. And we have a lot of people that are seeing positive ways.
Yeah, so it's just changes in positive ways right now because these two planets are okay. Got it.
That's why I don't feel like, oh my God, like some people can have a very negative outlook on this and everything that's going on, but I'm like, actually, no, this is really going to be good. Because of that Jupiter influence, it's going to be really nice. And then into 2021, you have Jupiter and Saturn moving into Aquarius. As we're in this age of Aquarius, we're in this beginning of the age of Aquarius, that's going to continue this positive change, though there will still be change happening, at least for the next couple of years, more dramatic change. But again, you have this energies working together to help us through it. And, you know, as long as we can stay positive and tune into the good things and maintain that, you know, attitude of gratitude, that's what will help us move through it and come out on the other side with a better outlook.
Yeah.
As we move throughout the rest of this year, back into September, you start to see Mars is going to go retrograde in September, but the shadow period starts at the end of July. So the Mars retrograde is much longer, so the shadow period is even longer, and that shadow period is going to carry us through the end of the year. So when Mars goes retrograde, again, Mars is our energy, we are going to feel more lethargic. We are going to not feel like doing a lot, which could play well if we end up in another shelter-in-place situation, right? Like, oh, well, we're going to stay at home anyway. I don't feel like doing anything. It's fine. If we're able to be out and about, then a Mars retrograde is a great time for vacation, to get away, because you're giving yourself permission to rest when you're on vacation. We
Right.
don't give ourselves permission to rest otherwise. So if you can take a week or two off at any point during that retrograde, give yourself permission to rest. Know that it's okay to slow down. Again, all of the RE things, to relax. Tempers can be a little bit more on edge during that time. But again, if you're giving yourself the time to rest and you're not putting pressure on yourself or judging yourself for not being super active, then it's a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about those. Let's talk about the eclipses. We just had a lunar eclipse that happened, what, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, just on the, what was it? Let me turn my page. It was just on the 5th of June, I believe. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so just about 10 days ago.
Right, just 10 days ago. And eclipses, they have a shadow period as well, kind of like a retrograde. So the eclipse energy, I love the example I've been given, that's boiling water. So if you have a pot on the stove that's simmering, that pot is always warm. And then you turn it up to boil, and as it raises to the boil, that's the eclipse time. And then you turn it back down to simmer and it cools down, but it's still warm. So when you have an eclipse cycle, it's two opposing signs. And that eclipse cycle usually lasts for about 1.5 to 2 years. We have been, well, since 2018, mid-2018, been in the Capricorn Cancer eclipse cycle. Okay. So that means that, and eclipses are always oppositions. We're being asked to integrate opposing energies during that cycle. And Capricorn represents work. It represents our public life, public reputation. It represents government, authority figures. And Cancer represents home life, your private life, your physical home. It represents immediate family, mother energy, more of a nurturing energy. And Capricorn, that authoritative, can also be father. So your direct parents are involved. So during this cycle, if you look back to about mid-2018 and you look at the things that have happened in your personal life, there's been a lot of work and home things. Eclipses bring with them drama. And any kind of eclipse type of happening can happen anytime during that 2-year cycle. That's that simmering pot.
Gotcha.
As it raises to the boil, as we get closer to the exact eclipse, the energy just intensifies. So you can have more of those kind of dramatic events happen. And it's typically things happen sort of suddenly and out of the blue, unexpected type of things. And with that is where the drama comes in. And drama can happen around good things too. For instance, somebody finds out they're having a baby, that's a really good news. But that also brings with it some kind of drama, like, oh, life is going to change. We need to get all these things and change the house and whatever else. So still drama, but it's, in a good thing. And typically your solar eclipses are bringing new things into your world, new things. Lunar eclipses tend to remove things from our lives. And it can be things that we liked having, which is where some of the drama, we don't want to let it go. But just know that anything that is being eclipsed out is for your good. It's to make room for something new to come in. Because energy is never created or destroyed. It just moves, right? So in order to create space, you've got to remove something to bring something else in. And the more we know and can trust that anything that's being eclipsed out, it can be a project that has ended. So it can be very simple, like, oh, this is done, so now it's time to move on. Or it can be forcing us to let go of something, which we don't want to.
Right.
That could be getting laid off from a job that we weren't ready to let go of, but knowing that we weren't happy in that job. So then it makes room for a new job to come in that's better aligned with what we'd like to be doing, right? So these last 2 years have been a lot about work life, home businesses, anything to do with your parents, mother and father. So it could be sudden illnesses, could be moving, anything to do with your home. Lots of this back and forth of how do I integrate my public life to my private life. That whole cycle is ending now. We have a solar eclipse in, let me get this right. We have a solar eclipse in Cancer on the 21st, so Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at 1:43 a.m. Central Standard Time, so it can be on the 20th or the 21st, depending on what time zone you're in. So that's going to be bringing anything new that would be related to your home, nurturing, mother, could be a home business, could be your physical home, anything in your immediate family. It's bringing something in with it, usually pretty suddenly. And like I said, you may have already experienced that because this energy starts to intensify about 4 weeks in advance of the eclipse, but it could have happened at any point this year too. To close out the cycle, we will then be having a lunar eclipse in Capricorn on July 4th, 5th, depending upon your time zone. So in Central Standard Time, it's at 11:36 p.m. On the 4th that night. But it could be if you're on the East Coast or elsewhere in the world, you will be having it on the 5th, early morning. So that's going to be closing something out. So to make space in your private life, you've got to release something in your public life, right? This back and forth thing. And this is closing out the storyline. If you look back at your life over the last year and a half or 2 years, it's closing out that whole storyline. So we hopefully have learned what we needed to learn during this eclipse cycle, that we've integrated it in, and we're feeling pretty good, right? Like okay, hopefully it's not too dramatic in the next couple weeks. You'll typically, again, that energy, it's about a month building up and about a month to cool down. So we should be wrapping it all up through the end of this year for sure. Layer into that, what we talked about, what happened on June 5th, is we've just started the new eclipse cycle. So the eclipses are also tied to your north and south nodes in astrology. So as the nodes move, that's when the eclipses happen. So we had this year, the north and south nodes move into the Sagittarius Gemini polarity.
Okay.
So we had our first lunar eclipse in Sagittarius on June 5th.
Okay.
We will then have, so that was just sort of the taster.
Right.
So we've got a second burner on that stove, starting a new pot, right? And I love seeing how this is going to play out because we've already seen these themes this year that we're going to be seeing for the next year and a half. So this cycle is going to continue through the end or the first couple weeks of 2022. So it's about a year and a half eclipse cycle. And you're going to have these back and forth between Gemini and Sagittarius. So the themes we're going to be seeing have to do everything with education. And our school systems have been toppled on their heads, right? Everything's been flipped. Right. Nobody knows, not everybody knows if their kid is going to even go back to school in the fall or if they're going to keep things online. Some schools have made decisions, some still haven't. Some parents may decide that they are going to look at more permanent online school education for homeschooling. So everything is sort of shifting and evolving in the education space. It's happening at the university level as well. I have another friend who is going back to school, and she has chemistry lab online. So they shipped all of the chemicals and supplies to her house to do her experiments, right?
Oh, wow.
None of the super dangerous ones, but she has some flammable items now that I was like, well, that's interesting.
Very interesting.
People are trying all different kinds of things in the world of education. We're looking at everything travel, right? So domestic versus international travel. Many of us who love to travel, I know you're one of those with me, love to travel. All of my international trips were canceled this year.
Yeah, right. I'm waiting to hear on one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen. Yeah. Or that I should even take it.
Right. You have to decide if you want to go on it. However, we are looking more at domestic trips. Where can I go in my backyard? Like I said, we just went down to Fredericksburg, not too far from Dallas, and had a great time and explored hill country. And I was like, I forget that this is right in our backyard, right? There's lots of other places in Texas as well as the United States that I'd like to explore more of. So maybe this year, as I can get out, I'll do more domestic travel, a little bit of this back and forth thing. We might see into 2021 where everybody's tired of domestic travel and wants to do more international once airlines and countries open up, right? So we're going to see this back and forth a little bit. Additional themes are going to touch on communication. We're seeing that now. I mean, you're a pioneer in Zoom, but so many other work companies haven't been using their technology that they've had available that now everybody's accessing. I can do video calls. I'm going to find new ways to communicate. Sometimes we even go back to old ways. Like I got a couple of cards in the mail over the last month that I was just like, oh my God, somebody wrote me a handwritten note. And that was wonderful. It wasn't my birthday. It was just a nice kind of touch point. And so we might even be going back to some more personalized handwritten communication. So the whole theme of communication is going to be back and forth and around. Legal matters might come up. Siblings. Gemini rules siblings and extended families. So the last 2 years have been a lot about our mother and fathers, and now it could be about siblings or cousins or aunts and uncles. Storylines with them might be coming up. One of I think the biggest theme that we're going to be seeing in this cycle has a lot to do with spirituality and belief systems. Those are the pieces that we're going to be asked to be integrating right now. And it's, figuring out during all of this chaos, as we tear down our old belief systems, our old structures, and look to rebuild new ones. This is where we're going to be spending the bulk of our work. And we're going to see a lot, I think, of dramatic change in the next year and a half in this space. So it's a lot to process and think about. We're just kind of getting introduced to the energy at the beginning of June. And throughout this month, these themes are going to play out, again, through the whole time, but we're going to see an increase in that energy as we get toward the later part of this year. So November 30th is when we have a solar eclipse a lunar eclipse in Gemini. Right. So we have a lunar eclipse in Gemini on November 30th. That's my birthday. I got to let go of a lot of stuff. Right. And then we have right behind it will be the solar eclipse in Sagittarius on December 14th. So that's just going to kind of keep things going. So we have more retrograde energy this year. We have dramatic eclipse happenings as we have this overlay of two different eclipse cycles, one ending, one beginning. Perfect for eclipses, right? They overlap in there, as well as all of this Pluto stellium transformational energy and it's just kind of like, it's no wonder people are sort of feeling like they're a bouncy ball being hit across the universe at this point. So anything you can do to do that self-care, to do the rest. I know we have to live our lives. We have to launch projects. We have to keep things moving, right? Just be prepared and accept the changes as they come, because I don't think things are going to look like necessarily what we expect them to at the end of all of this. So the best things to do is visualize how you want them to look. Doesn't matter how it happens, and not even to focus on the how, but if we can focus on how we want to feel, where we want to be. For me, I like to feel free as much as I possibly can, and I've defined what freedom means to me, and freedom can mean different things to different people. So how can I feel free in everything I'm doing? I want to feel joyful. I want to feel excited. So concentrating on those moments, on those feelings when I'm really unsure about what the future holds, has helped me kind of process all of this energy.
Absolutely. Yes. I 100% agree. It's your definition of what makes you feel good and allows you. And then also you have to give yourself grace during this journey, especially when there's a lot of things happening right now. So I've found that word grace to come into my life quite a bit during this time, right?
You have to. And I was reminded of a saying today, just this morning. I was scrolling through I've got to write down all my dates, right? Because there's a lot of them. I was scrolling through and I found a saying that I wrote down it's just perfect for this time. And I needed the reminder myself personally. But it said, every day, forgive yourself 1,000 times. And then forgive yourself 1,000 more. because there's going to be moments throughout the day, a minute here, 10 minutes there, whatever, every day that we need to give ourselves forgiveness, give ourselves that grace, treat ourselves with compassion, because we're not always going to get it right or get it perfect by any means, and we don't have to. But as long as we can treat ourselves with compassion and grace throughout all of that. It was a good reminder for me. I was like, I need to keep forgiving myself 1,000 times and 1,000 times more.
Absolutely, girl. So talk a little bit about the types of charts you do. I know you do the personal chart. So you do the personal natal chart that basically kind of gives you an overview of your life. Is that correct?
Yes. So I love personal astrology, because for me, that's how we can, help each other use this energy to find flow in life, right? Like everybody talks about being in flow. And when we resist the energy is when we find we have hurdles in life. So I want to help people understand the natural cycles and rhythms we all go through, and how to use that energy to best, like if you want to launch a business, if you have a new idea or whatever it is, how do you use that energy to the best of your abilities? So we start with the natal chart or the birth chart, and that's the foundation of pretty much all astrology, really. You can do a natal chart for a country as well. Interesting stuff. So we're going to focus on your birth chart, and that is ultimately your operating manual, your guidebook. It talks to you about how you learn, how you communicate, what are good types of careers and jobs for you, what are going to be the important aspects of your life that you're going to want to naturally focus on. Where do what I call your superpowers lie, your natural gifts and talents, what lessons are you here to learn, how do you love, how do you think. All of that can be found in a natal chart. So I like to start there, because the more you understand yourself, then the easier it is to then harness those energies in different ways at different times of life. So from the natal chart, we progress into the transit charts, where we can look at, 6 months ahead for you. So let's look at your natal chart compared to what's happening in the sky every month. And that's when we get into let's plan out how you can use these energies to the best of your ability. So for, what we talked about today, that's collective energy, right? Everything that we're, these grades, all of that's collective energy. Where these things are happening in your natal chart is specific to you. So everybody is snowflake. So we layer on all these different types of energies. So we would look at, if we're going to look at the eclipses, we'd look at where is Capricorn and Cancer in your chart, which houses do they rule, which houses does Sagittarius and Gemini impact, because while we talked about the major themes that we all experience together, there's another layer that you'll experience personally. So I love to go in and do, and really you only need to see an astrologer about every 6 months or so to kind of just check in with how things are going and where the energies are moving. I also do synastry charts, or compatibility charts as they're known, and that's putting you with another person. They're most commonly used for romantic relationships, but they don't have to. They are great for parent-child. They're great for friendships. They're great for coworkers, any family member really. So I have recently read for some people that had a family of 5 kids. So I read for the husband and wife together, and looked at their charts in comparison, and where they have ease and where they have conflict in their relationship. And that's all a compatibility chart will tell you. I have to pause, because people are always like, oh, will I find my soulmate, or is this person a perfect match for me? There's no perfect match, but we can find out where you will have ease and where there might be more challenge. And then you, using your free will, can decide if you want to work through the challenging energies or not. Gotcha. So I read for them, and then I read for each of their 5 children. And then I, looked at their children, their whole family dynamic then, to say, okay, how do their kids interact with each other? How do they interact with each parent? And looking at their whole family dynamic to then say, okay, here's some things you guys can be aware of. Here's where there might be communication breakdowns. Here's why these 2 fight all the time. Here's what's happening at the kid level. And then giving them some information about, I love doing readings for their parents and kids, just helping you understand even your own child better to adapt your parenting style then for that kid. We cannot always, and rarely can we ever, prevent our children from having difficult times in life and experiencing pain, because that's what this human experience has involved, right? But you can be ready to offer them the support they need to help them through those difficult times. So if you can give them the support and adjust parenting styles, communication styles, whatever it is, that can then help them through those difficult times. So it can be simple little things. For instance, you know, I told my sister she just needs to hug one of her sons a little bit more. He's not one that often shows emotion. And looking at his chart and looking at some things, I was like, just try this one thing. Just hug him a little more often. Because he's not one that will come up and ask for a hug. So the whole family, she did it, husband did it, I did it, grandma did it. We just all started hugging him more. This kid will now share his emotion. He expresses it more. He will now come and ask for hugs. It's almost like we gave him permission. He's like, we started this when he was 8. He's 9 now. You know, but it's simple little tweaks that you don't even think about because he seems fine.
Yeah.
He's reading his book. He's cool. But I'm like, no, I'm going to go hug him even when he's reading his book because that's just the kind of person I am. But in doing that, you know, he's able to express himself a little bit better. So it's little things. It doesn't have to be big things, you know. Kind of. So those are fun for me to do, all the synastry compatibility charts. And then I also love to do birthday readings. So that's a shorter reading, and we look at what's called a solar return chart. So we look at the sun as it makes its way all the way back around. Every year you have a solar return on your birthday. And we look at the themes that you're going to encounter for the next year. So it's great to sort of say, here's the major stuff that you're going to be working with. And again,
what a nice birthday gift with that. That would be such a great gift.
They're fantastic birthday gifts. I'm doing one. I have one of my dear friends. Her birthday is coming up in July, and so on Friday I'm going to be giving her birthday reading.
I like it. I like it. Oh, okay. I'm so glad that you just said that because I like experiences as gifts. You know, I like that's such a great experience.
Yeah, it's really fun. I had it was back in the fall, I think. No, earlier this year. I don't remember before.
Right.
Well, all of time is before. Yeah, before. This young woman was turning 18, and so her mom bought her a natal chart reading for her birthday. So with her mom there, we sat down and we read for her 18th birthday. And then it was, again, this family of 5, this all kicked off because her son was turning 13, and so we did the reading for her son for his birthday, and he was there and got to hear all about himself and his superpowers, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, there's a lot of people who love to give it as an experience, as a gift. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. I like that. I like that. Okay, so I have been, for the most part, the last few conversations that we've had, I have ended on a fun little tidbit or fact or something funny. So I was commenting on your hair it's so long right now. And I'm like, what's going on with your hair? I mean, of course, I think all of us have grown a little bit during shelter in place, but yeah, do share.
Not a lot of access to haircuts recently, but that worked in my favor. So one of the fun little experiments from my teacher that I picked up on was only cutting your hair after a new moon in a water sign. If you want to grow your hair longer, faster, and fuller, and it doesn't matter how much you cut, so a trim or whatever, just depends on the length you're wanting to grow it. But just watching how fast it's growing. So I am midway through this year-long experience, right? So we have, in the course of a year, we have 3 new moons in water signs. Okay. So that would be the new moon in Pisces, a new moon in Cancer, so my haircut is coming up at the end of this month, after the 21st, and then a new moon in Scorpio in the fall. So those are the 3 times of the year that you would have a new moon in a water sign. And so then that's the only time you would cut your hair. So 3 times a year. And again, you can cut as much or as little as you want. I am growing this out to see how long it actually gets in that time. Yeah. And so my hairdresser has been measuring in relation to my bra strap. So I think when we started, it was about 4 inches above my bra strap. So I started November, after the Scorpio new moon. So it was October of last year. Is when we did the first, I was like, this is the first kickoff of it. And then she cut it after the Pisces new moon in February. And so now we're getting ready for this Cancer one. And at the second visit, it was about 2 inches above the bra strap. And then we trimmed it a little bit. And now when I look in the mirror, I'm like, okay, like we're right there. We're right. Yeah. So, we're right there. It's grown pretty fast for me. Some people have naturally fast growing hair. Mine's sort of average. Mm-hmm. Average growing. It's not super fast, but this definitely has grown a lot, and I'm going to keep it going until October because that will be the full year. cycle.
That's so cool.
How long it gets. Because for me, that's just like a fun random thing to do, right?
Totally. I love experiments.
And at the end of it, I might cut it all off and that'll be fine. But I was just like, it's just out of pure curiosity that I'm doing this to see how fast it grows. So while we are cutting back on some of our grooming, this is a great time to start your own experiment if you want.
Absolutely. I know that people plant, they grow gardens around astrology charts, planted by the moon and all of that type of thing. And not something I've gotten into. It's extremely interesting to me, but you know, sometimes, well, when I planted my garden, I was like, I just got to get this shit in the ground. This has been a lot of work.
I just have to do it. I just got to get it done.
I mean, like, if we're going to do this, we got to do it now. But if you know it's coming up, right? So maybe I could plan something. I'm thinking around the Scorpio.
Yeah.
You said Scorpio, right?
Cancer is the first one coming up, and the Cancer new moon is going to be on the 21st.
Yeah, so I've already had my hair done, so I'd have to wait till the next one.
Your next one you'd want to do after the Scorpio new moon, and that'll be usually for the end of October. Yeah, but you can find on there's a bunch of moon apps. Moongiant.com is one that I like to go to that gives you a whole moon calendar. So you can look at the cycles of the moon. But it's funny you say that because the Farmer's Almanac is based on moon cycles, which is all tied to astrology. So even though astrology hasn't been as popular in the last 50, 60 years, it's making a resurgence now, but we've always used it. We just never really realized it. Like when you blow out the candles on your birthday cake and make a wish, it's foundations in astrology. You do birthday wishes at your solar return. There's a fun little ceremony that Andrea has taught us to do your birthday wishes, but all of that comes from astrology.
Right.
Bunch of other fun things. So we've been using it in our lives and never really even knew it.
Yeah, it's so wild. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you as always for coming on. And I need to make sure that we don't wait another 6 months. we'll plan this in the fall again. We'll have you back on to kind of.
There'll be plenty to check in on.
The end of the year, girl. Take us through the end of the year. So.
Yes, there'll be plenty to check in on by then.
Yeah. All right, girl. Well, I always appreciate you coming on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And this live video is, of course, going in Stay Wild Child. So make sure you post all your contact information because I know that there's been a lot of talk lately in the group, astrology talk. So what's going on with these damn planets? And so
if you have questions, throw them out there. I will be as quick to answer them as I possibly can. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Thank you, Dana. All right. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Appreciate you coming on, love.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.